who love to be the big boy with their sword in the hand there in the dark room in the middle of the smoke and commanding these spirits and everything else. And it's often a compensation for the fact that in their ordinary lives these people are very insignificant, unprepossessing butterballs who don't really amount to a heck of a lot, and probably never will amount to a heck of a lot. So you have to you have to watch that. Who is attracted to magic? And Dr. Regardi and another late friend of mine, I don't know whether I should mention his name, is a little more controversial, although albeit less known than Dr. Regardi, was Louis Culling, who was in the Aleister Crowley tradition. And I've known a few people that, let me tell you, I am not a telemic magician. I don't like that stuff. But I must say that some of the people there, especially my late friend, Mr. Culling, if that was a black magician, we should have more of them. Because he was a thoroughly good and ethical man. So don't let anybody tell you that just because somebody follows Aleister Crowley's magic that they are therefore bad people. No. What does what the Lao Tzu says? If the wrong man uses the right means work in the wrong way. But you can turn this also around. If the right man uses perhaps even the wrong means, sometimes the wrong means work the right way also. But they will work the right way then. So it depends very much on what what person you are dealing with. But certainly, ceremonial magic has a way of attracting people who are compensating maybe for their lack of strong ego, or whatever the case may be with this business that depends to such a great extent on the exertion of the will, of the magical will, and so forth. But on the other hand, it's a discipline. It's a good discipline that in the midst of very strange and often very consciousness-altering conditions, you maintain your conscious awareness along with the sensitivity to what is taking place, and you sort of find yourself with one foot in one world and with the other foot in the other world. And that's very interesting and it's very important, because we all know it's relatively easy to just stay with both feet in this world. It's easy but dull, boring. This world is boring, there's no doubt about it. I mean, ordinary state of consciousness is boring, to me at least. If it's not to you, then you're luckier than I am, that's all. And it's also relatively easy to slip over into the other world and lose consciousness. And then you don't really bring back anything. So you can flip-flop back and forth this way between two worlds and never really profit by it particularly. But the essence really of the magical method is that you are in both worlds at the same time. Now, among the preliminary, in the Golden Dawn system, for instance, which was a late 19th century magical school, let's say, but very, very accomplished. There were a lot of very smart people there. And in the Golden Dawn system, for instance, among other modalities, divination was used as a preliminary training of the magician. Tarot, I Ching, things like that. Why would that be a good training for a magician? Because divination at a less intense level does the same thing. You are in both worlds at the same time. There is an objective element there, like you have to know the meaning of the tarot cards, you have to know how to throw the hexagrams of the I Ching. The technical part of it, so you have to be conscious. But at the same time, you have to be just enough altered, just enough have your consciousness modified that the divinatory modality becomes sort of slightly translucent. It's no longer opaque. You see something else through it. Right? So the principle is very similar, to be in both worlds at the same time, not really losing contact with either. Now, since I mentioned something of that sort in the beginning, more or less in conclusion, I'll throw in, is it useful at all to combine ceremonial magic, let's say, with entheogens? I don't think so. I have seen it done, and I haven't seen any very good results come out of it. And I don't quite know why, but my intuition, such as it is, tells me that what you are doing is you are heaping one kind of a method, a modality, a discipline of the altering of consciousness on top of another, and that the two may not mesh terribly well. And so it doesn't seem to be very profitable. I would say that perhaps a rather mild psychedelic might work, entheogen, but certainly not the really powerful ones who sort of have their own magic, like the king of them all, invented, of course, in Switzerland by Sandoz Laboratories by Dr. Hoffman, that is LSD. You know, there are entheogens that are terribly powerful of their own and that wouldn't combine. So really, you might say that ceremonial magic is an entheogenic practice of its own, which brings about an altered state of consciousness by way of all of these elements and by way of the entire ritual system itself. All good ritual is really somewhat of that order. A good ritual done according to tradition and with the right attitude of mind, whether it's the Catholic Mass or whether it's a Masonic ritual, will bring about a heightening or an altering of consciousness to some extent and to some degree. And the more sensitive the person is to that sort of thing, of course, the more heightened it will be. And that, I don't say that that's their only purpose. You know, a Catholic priest would probably beat me up because the contemporary Catholic theology is very much opposed to calling the sacraments magic. But that's because they have a low opinion of magic, and they don't associate with the term magic the same concepts that I associate with it. Certainly in the Middle Ages, they would say, oh yeah, that's God's magic. That's the kind of magic that Jesus taught us, you know. Who says Jesus couldn't have been a magician? Certainly some modern scholars have said so, like Morton Smith and others. But now, of course, they don't. But another, and I have to conclude on that note, that another, I think, very, very important element, at least that I have found, I can only talk from my own experience really, not from anyone else's, that any kind of magical altering of consciousness will bring about, in due course of time, a magical transformation and altering of your life. The magic bleeds into, the magic leaks into your life bit by bit, until eventually more and more of your life has become magical. The receptivity to the higher forces or the deeper forces, now you no longer only have the vision, but you have the conversation. You saw that when the interaction, and finally more and more the two begin to mesh, to unite. And the more these worlds come together as the result of the magical activity, the more your entire life becomes a magical operation, a magical ceremony. And perhaps when that really happens, then the need for the altering of consciousness by these various means lessens. Alan Watts of blessed memory said, when you get the message, you can hang up. Various people like Houston Smith, the dear old, the grand old man, you know, quotes Alan Watts in that regard. And that's true. But you have to remember that you don't hang up before you got the message. Getting the message is the important part. Whether you hang up, when you hang up, how you hang up, that's your business after that. But for God's sakes and for magic's sake, get the message. And on that keynote, I think I will stop at this particular moment. Thank you very much.
Copyright MNII by BC Recordings. Catalog number 301007. For more